how did you get into voice acting?
How did I get into voice acting? Well, I've been an actor my whole life. So since I can remember, I love doing acting. And then in high school, I was in drama class and then all the stage shows. And same with college. I did a lot of acting on stage. And then I got into some stand-up comedy. I did that for a while.
Oh,
Around the same time as that, I also did some on-camera work, just some B movies over the years. But I was going to this place called the Musicians Institute where I was learning guitar, and I was the spokesman for the school. And as part of being the spokesman, they wanted me to go and go on a movie set and show the actors how to look like they knew how to play the guitar, like do windmills and jump off of things,
right.
jump off the amps and stuff. And so when I went there, the director saw me doing my stuff and said, "Hey, are you an actor also?" And I said, "Yes." And so he said, "I'm going to cast you in this movie as the lead guitar player." So I was in this movie where I met this guy named Bentley Mitchum, who is a regular on-camera actor. And we became really good friends and eventually roommates. And he was in a film called Susie Q with a lady named Amy Jo Johnson, who's the pink Power Ranger. And I went to visit him. Again, this is 25 years ago. So I went to visit him on the movie set. And while I was there, I was doing some of these impressions and doing some of my stand-up comedy. And Amy Jo said, "You'd make a great voice actor." And so I really didn't know what voice actors did other than commercials and, a little bit on cartoons, but it wasn't like now where we have The Simpsons and, Family Guy and all these other shows where it's like a lot of dialogue with animation. So she introduced me to a guy named Scott Page, who was the producer for the Power Rangers. And he let me audition for what's called a loop group, which is a bunch of actors, usually between 8 and 12 actors, come in after the whole show's been edited, and we do all the background voices on the show. And so for Power Rangers, it's mostly people running away from the big monsters and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so that was my very first crack at a real show as a voice actor. I'd done a little narration here and there prior to that, but as an actual voice actor being paid for being a voice actor alone was the Power Rangers. That's how I started. And then I moved, the second season was Power Rangers Turbo that I was on anyway. And I played a character named Rygog and Larigo, this little wizard. And then after that was Power Rangers in Space. And then I played a character named Ecliptor in Power Rangers in Space. And from there, I met people, and I met my wife, my current wife. I never had another one, but we've been together also for about 25 years. And she was already established as a voice actress. She'd been working on King of the Hill and The Simpsons and some other stuff. And so she helped me get everything I needed to become a voice actor, my demo tape and a way to have an agent and things like that. So she was very instrumental in helping me get to that next level also. And then from there, I did, regular animation. When I say regular, I mean Western animation, like Batman and Justice League Unlimited, Legion of Superheroes, those kind of things.
So obviously you've done loads of work over the years. Do you have a process for getting into character? And if you do, can you explain that process?
Yeah. Most of the time for getting into character, I work with the director who's there as part of the voice director. What we'll do is we'll look at if we have the luxury of it, we'll look at a picture or a drawing of what that character looks like. And that'll give us an idea as to whether it's a big character, like it needs to sound like it's big and burly, or if it's just sort of a younger, meeker sounding thing, or snooty or whatever it might be. And then we'll just start working through like a few different voice print ideas. Like, they might say, I need it to sound like he's got a real dry mouth and he's parched. So then you might have it sound like we're all of a sudden, you can barely talk, whatever. They'll give you a direction and then we kind of go from there. And then that eventually leads to the base of that character. And then I talk with the director and say like, well, this character want in this show? Like, is he a bad guy? He wants world domination, or is he just like want to save somebody, or does he want to, avenge somebody's death, or like what is the actual motivation behind the character? We'll talk about that a little bit. And then I have a personal thing that I do. I ask what these, they're called the soul questions, oddly enough, and it comes from a meditation practice that's it's derived from India, from the yogi traditions. But basically you ask these questions like, who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? And what am I grateful for? So basically, who am I? You can say, okay, well, I'm, let's say, Dr. Doom, right? I'm Dr. Doom. What do I want? Well, I want to take over. I want the cube of power. I want world domination. I want to be left alone. Like a bunch of answers start coming. What is my purpose? How do I want to experience this life? Like, these are just character questions. And then you can start answering some of those. And then what am I grateful for? Even a villain is grateful for something. And it might be grateful for the power, or grateful for, the energy or the sorcery or whatever. It might be simple things. But once you start answering those questions, then the character can just perform how it's true to itself a little easier, instead of trying to think of like motivation behind each line. Then when you get to the lines themselves, then it gets to a point where you ask yourself, how do you feel about the other character that you're speaking with? So that's the big question. And so that makes it easy so that you can, if you understand how you feel about the character, then you don't have to worry about how to act towards them. Then you're already acting that way towards them. Like Batman, he feels differently towards the Joker than he does Alfred. So if you know how you feel about them, then you don't have to like act like you're feeling a certain way about them, if that makes any sense. You already know how you feel about them. Yeah.
Do you think it's almost the same as like on-screen acting in terms of getting into character? Because it sounds like the process is quite similar.
It is actually pretty similar. It is very similar to on-screen. I think anytime you're dealing with a character that is not who you are, you're not playing yourself, then you ask sort of those fundamental questions, or the same questions. What's my motivation? It sounds kind of a funny cliche version of it, but what do I want out of this? What is my purpose? What am I grateful for? And if you can answer those questions, then you got a leg up on the competition for being in character.
So you've kind of touched on this already, like asking those questions, but obviously when you work, like you said, there's a director. How much creative freedom do you have when it comes to portraying that character?
Usually when they hire you, they're giving you full freedom in portraying the character. If you go outside of the boundaries that they see for the character, they'll bring you right back in. Like, it'll be something quick and very, precise that they do as far as directing. But, for example, Dr. Neo Cortex is a character that I play in the Crash Bandicoot video game series. And when I started the role, they basically gave me free rein to improvise and to do, they were hiring me because of my abilities. And so they said, okay, here's the written line, read it as is, so we have one as is, and then, give me, just riff on the idea for a little while. So we have a lot of freedom that way. Yeah. Okay. We generally don't rewrite scripts, especially like in animation. Video games, we can alter it a little bit here and there, especially if it's a comedic character. But like if I'm doing let's say a Justice League, and I'm playing Captain Cold or somebody, I'm not going to just improvise when I get to my lines. I'm going to read them the way they're written, because they're very specific. Yeah. But the director, I direct a little myself, but the director is really an integral part of like locking in the character and locking in the performance, because they're going to shape you and guide you like a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so you've also touched on that, like you've played villains like Captain Cold, and like Batman is a hero, and then also like Cortex, who's like a bit of a comedic villain. Do you
Yeah.
have kind of a favorite archetype of character to voice act on?
Um, yeah, well, I'd have to say that probably the two last that you mentioned, the villain
Mm,
and the comedic, because when you're doing a comedic role, not only are you laughing while while you're doing it because things are funny as you record, but also the director's laughing. If there's a producer or two involved in the recording process, then they're laughing, and it's like laughter's such good medicine that it's really a lot of fun to do humor as part of what characters you do. But on the same side, villainy. I'm not a villainous person in my everyday life. And so to be able to play a character that's like motivated by all these, less than honorable motivations, that can be really fun too, Like I don't wake up thinking I'm going to have to take over the world or annihilate a certain people or anything when I get up. But when the villain awakens in a script, that's always a lot of fun to play. You can be maniacal, and those kind of performances are cool.
yeah, I guess it's like it gets to show off more of your acting range rather than just kind of being in a little bubble of being the good person.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously you've done TV and you've done games. What are the main differences in recording lines for those, if there are any?
There's actually 3 or 4 different differences in voice acting. The first is what I call original animation, and that's like Western animation, like a Batman show or things like that, the Warner Brothers, the US based stuff, because that's where I am.
Yeah,
that's recorded in what they call theater style, and that means the whole cast is there. Everybody has their script in front of them, their own individual microphone, and you read through it with the director in the room, and we all do a rundown of the whole script from the very first line all the way to the end, so we know the entire story. And then we go and then we record on the second pass, and all the lines are numbered 1 through, let's say, 200 lines in a show. So the director will say, okay, let's do loops 1 through 18. And then the cast will do that and we'll read it. If the director has a note, they might say, okay, on line 7, be sure you're more afraid because they just broke in, or whatever it might be. And so they'll record that again. Usually at that point, it's like, okay, great, let's move on. We'll do 19 through 27 next, and so forth. It goes on and on. Yeah. Sometimes at the end of loop 18, they might say, let's just do a quick pickup. We'll just pick up line number 7 again, even more fearful. And then that one person will read that one line, and then they'll move forward. Okay, so that's that. Video games, most of the time, 95% of the time, you're by yourself, and you don't have the entire script. You just have a director, and you have all of your lines on the script. So you just go bouncing from your line to the next line. And sometimes they're in game, sometimes it's a cut scene, sometimes it's just random lines that are being said. And for that, they expect you to do about 100 lines per hour, which is quite a clip. You're at a clip, But it's just like you're running down the page. So like you might be like, we got to clear that way. Didn't find anything here, sir. Where's my backup? Whatever. Like it's a variety pack, and you have a little column next to that line that indicates how it applies to the game. So you might see like under attack or worrying about a new attack or whatever it might be in a video game. So there's that. Then there's anime, or what's called foreign dubbing. Again, you're by yourself, but for foreign dubbing, that's an original animation that's come over from another country. And the animation is done already, so you can see the flaps going already. Like you see the mouth flaps. So what happens is somebody takes the translation from that other country, and then a writer called an adaptation writer writes the new line for the English actor, the English-speaking actor,
Yeah.
that matches those flaps. So let's say it's from Japan, like an anime or something comes over. Well, good morning in Japanese is Ohayo gozaimasu. Okay, so it's like Ohayo gozaimasu. So good morning is that much in English. So you got this da 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 da, right? So the adaptation writer will write in, "Good morning, everybody," or whatever. They'll add some lines so that the lines match. So there's it's a little more technical in that respect, as you have to kind of keep an eye on the mouth flaps while you're acting and be able to like sync up with that. And that's generally how that works. And the director and the engineer have a lot to do with helping you in that zone. And then commercials is also by yourself, and it's just usually a script, a small script that you'll read, something on sale or whatever it might be. But those are the main differences. Original animation, you have the whole cast. Video games, you're by yourself running down the entire script, just your lines. And then anime, you're by yourself, and then you're just jumping to the different scenes. You don't watch the whole show. So it's like at the beginning, let's say it's Naruto. Teiuchi's giving Naruto some ramen. All right, Naruto, have some more ramen or whatever. And then he eats the ramen. And then it's like, okay, let's go to minute 22 where Teiuchi says, is that all you're going to have? And then we do that line. I watch the Japanese, and then I do it again in English. Yeah. So those are the main differences.
Okay.
Yeah. Hope that answered the question.
No, that was great. That was so you've mentioned a little bit about how you kind of did a little bit of on-screen acting like earlier in your career. Do you think there's benefits to voice acting over on-screen acting in terms of like keeping some anonymity? Because I know there are some problems that come with like
fame and recognition.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, obviously, as a voice actor, you don't get stopped at the store as often as you would if you were an on-camera actor. Like I'm lucky. Eventually, with social media and things like that, and pop culture and Comic-Cons and stuff, one or two people might recognize you if they saw you somewhere, but it's nothing like if you were like a famous on-camera actor. So there is that anonymity that's really nice. I do like that.
And have you ever wanted to pursue more on-screen acting?
I'm always up for acting in any form. I did this movie not too long ago. I think it was just a few years ago, right before the pandemic, called Famish. I don't know if you heard of it or not, but you can rent it online. It's called Famish. A guy named Jeff Nimoy, who is a voice director and also a voice actor. He wrote the film, and he asked me if I'd be in it, and I said yes. I play a character named Lex Lang in the movie, but it's just a fictitious version of myself that has like a child and an ex-wife and all this other stuff. But it's a real fun movie. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, it's called Famish, and it's just basically about how when you are a voice actor, there is a micro degree of fame that comes with big parts and stuff, but it's kind of fame-ish because it's not like an on-camera actor who'd be recognizable and all those other things that come with it. But it's cute. It's a heartwarming story. I also have music in that film too. I got to write some of the score as well as some songs for some of the scenes. Yeah.
I'll definitely check that out then. Yeah,
dude, you'll enjoy it.
Do you have a favorite role you voiced in your career?
Favorite role I voiced? Well, I'm sure if you talk to anybody who knows me, they'd probably tell you that I'm a bit of a Star Wars geek. I collect a lot of Star Wars stuff. In fact, above me back here are actual frames from the different movies that are actual pieces of the 70 millimeter film. And I play a character named Major Von Reg in Star Wars Resistance, and this is his helmet I had made. Jason Props, a guy on Instagram, makes these, and he made an amazing version of this. But to answer the question, sorry, I veered off there. when I got the part of Han Solo for a few different video games, that was really spectacular. I auditioned in a pool of 1,600 auditioners, and it kept getting boiled down until there were just 4 of us left. And then they sent us actual audio from the original Star Wars, just of Han Solo, like no sound effects, no music, nothing else, just like his raw footage. Yeah. And I just studied that like crazy, and then I ended up getting the part. The funny part is that when I was 15, 16 years old, I went to different Comic-Cons. They would call them science fiction cons back then, cosplaying as Han Solo. Oh, so years later, 20 years later, I got the chance to be Han Solo for a real Star Wars project. Yeah. And that was like one of the greatest notifications I'd ever been given by my agent. She's like, guess what? And I was like, what? She said, you got Han Solo. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful. That's awesome. Thanks. And I hung up the phone and I started running around the room going, oh my God. It was pretty funny. That one's one of them. Also, I got to play Batman a few times in my career so far. Not on a show that had, like, I was the Batman for the entire series. Well, there was one. It was called Batgirl Year One. It's on iTunes right now. You can hear me as Batman in that whole series. But I'm the voice of Batman for Mattel Toys. So anytime you get a Batman figure like the one that's up there, or this one right there, or that one, like there's a bunch of them. That's my voice that comes out of those toys.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that was another thrill, just like total thrill. One time in particular was a show called Batman Brave and the Bold. You probably heard of it. Yeah. If not, it's a good show. Diedrich Bader is a really good voice actor who plays Batman in that show. But he was there's a story arc that Batman gives his cape and cowl to Robin to become the new Batman to fight the Joker and his grandson. And I played Robin, who became Batman in that story arc. And so the experience that I had that was really amazing was, it was actually kind of a funny story. In the script, there's a line like, Joker is saying like, it would take an army to defeat me now. And Batman says, well, that would be me. And Joker says, well, who are you? And Batman says, I'm Batman. Mm-hmm. And so when I got the script, I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I get to say I'm Batman in the script. So I was practicing going around my house like, I'm Batman, I'm Batman, I'm Batman. Like I was doing all these deep voice, like super cool. And when we got to the episode, we read through it. And when we got to that line, after we read through it, the director said, well, when we get to that line next time, pitch it up a little bit. It's Robin still, so it can't be like as cool as Batman. He's got to be a little more, higher voiced, younger. So I was like, okay. So we got to it and I was like, I'm Batman. And she was like, well, can you pitch it up any further? And I was like, I'm Batman. How about a little bit more? And I was like, I'm Batman? It was like, I wasn't quite sure, I was like, this is starting to sound like just this young guy. It doesn't even sound like Batman anymore. And she said, believe me, it sounds great. I'm Batman. I think is around here where he ended up sounding like all of his lines. Go check on Joker, that kind of stuff. It wasn't like in that super deep voice that I was hoping, like a Kevin Conroy kind of thing. But when we got to the line in the studio, when I actually recorded it, right after I said, I'm Batman, they stopped the recording and everybody in the booth, the director, the producers, the engineer, everybody, they stood up and they applauded. And the director said, you're one of 8 people in the world that has ever said that in the studios at Warner Brothers. And I was like, I was crying, actually. It was very moving for me. I was like, oh my God, this is a dream come true. So that's part 2 of which roles were my favorite. That one. And of course, I love Dr. Neo Cortex. He's one of my favorites of all time because he's really funny as hell. And so many great fans too of that product.
Yeah. I guess it does sound really surreal to be able to embody like some of your favorite characters, like Han Solo and Batman, like so well known, and to be a part of that must be amazing.
Yeah, it really is dream come true stuff where I'm like, pinch myself. I get to do this. That's awesome.
Yeah. Uh, I was going to ask actually, what's the best experience you've had as a result of your career? So I guess maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be a career moment, but have you had any like cool experiences that are a result of it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think one of them is, it may sound sort of general, but it's specific. It's being a voice actor and having the roles I've had has allowed me to travel the world at different Comic-Cons. Like I've been to Australia and New Zealand and London, and being in London enabled me to take a train to Paris to go see where my father was born in Paris. So I was able to go see where my father was born in Paris. And I've been all across the country. I've been to Canada, a few different places in Canada. And so the travel that it's allowed me to do, I've been in the UK to London a couple times, and that is such a privilege and such a blessing that I'd say that is probably the biggest reward from that. And to be able to do it with my wife too, because she's also a voice actress. Her name's Sandy Fox, and she plays, tons and tons of, she's the voice of Betty Boop, and she's the voice of Chibi Usa on Sailor Moon, and a zillion other things. Like, she's been doing it longer than I have. But yeah, to be able to travel together, just my wife and I, and see the world, that's wonderful. We like that.
Are there any projects that you would love to be a part of in the future? Whether that's a film, game, TV series, whatever it might be.
Yes. I always love Star Wars stuff. So any more Star Wars stuff is always super welcome, and I'm excited about. Also, I've never been on Rick and Morty. I've never been on that show. I'd love to be a character on Rick and Morty. I'd love to be a character on Family Guy. I think those are such funny shows.
Yeah.
But those are the main ones. I'd love to have a Warner Brothers series where I play Batman for the entire series and not just like a story arc. I'd love to be Batman for a new series. And I also think that I'd probably also like to be able to be Superman at some point. That would be really fun to have like a Superman series.
Yeah.
But that's what I grew up with, is like those superheroes were always, something to strive for. And
yeah,
I loved comics and things when I was a kid.
No, that seems fair enough.
Yeah.
It would be great to be Superman.
Yeah, that would be fun. People who are out there want to get more of me can go to @LexLang, LEXLANG. And that's on Instagram. And Lex Lang TikTok is my TikTok.